Okay, so make this smaller again. Okay, so body cavities. So the body cavities are the places inside your body where your squishy organs sit. So brain squishy needs a space, liver squishy needs a space, all of these things, there are spaces inside your body where these things exist. So why does it keep doing that? Okay, so first off, there is a big division between what we call the dorsal body cavities, and the dorsal body cavities are these right here, and the ventral body cavities. So some textbooks, this one included, do not call this portion the dorsal body cavity. They call it the posterior aspect, and you're welcome to do that. I'm in the habit of using dorsal body cavity, and I like the symmetry that it has with ventral body cavity. So you're welcome. Either one would be correct on a written question. But let's talk about why this is dorsal. Why is it not the superior body cavity or the cranial body cavity altogether? Well, because remember that bipedal organisms are the exception to the rule, not the rule. And if this were not you, but a cat or a cow, would the brain and the spinal cord be dorsal in them? And yes, it would. So the dorsal body cavity really runs along the dorsal side of the body, and that's where the head is in quadrupeds. So, and it has a subdivision. This portion up here contains your brain, and it's called your cranial cavity. And then this portion right here contains your spinal cord, and it's called either the vertebral cavity or the spinal cavity, or sometimes they use the word canal. Okay, so again, more specific answers are correct answers. So if I asked you on a quiz, which body cavity contains the brain, then do you want to say either dorsal body cavity or posterior aspect? No, you want to say cranial cavity. So if you write a general answer down, make sure I'm kind of pulling it out of you kicking and screaming, right? Like there's no other answer. Like if I ask in this one, shoot, it's going to do it again. If I ask in this one, right here, if I ask which body cavity contains the brain and the spinal cord, then the only correct answers are dorsal body cavity or posterior aspect. Like cranial wouldn't be correct. Okay, and then the ventral body cavity is actually a lot more complicated. The ventral body cavity has a lot more subdivisions, and we'll spend some time on it. Okay, so first, the ventral body cavity right here has one big subdivision within it right here, and that is the diaphragm. Please note that it's got a G in it. You can say it in your head, diaphragm, so that you can remember how to spell it, but it is pronounced diaphragm. Okay, and the diaphragm divides the ventral body cavity into the thoracic cavity, and you learned hopefully before that thoracic or thorax implies chest. So the thoracic body cavity is everything that is above the diaphragm, and then the bottom one is the abdominal pelvic body cavity. The thoracic body cavity has some further subdivisions, and it's a little hard to understand, so we'll make sure that you get it in just a second. Okay, so the thoracic cavity has further subdivisions. It's got cavities within the thoracic body cavity. First off, there are these two, the right and left pleural cavity, P-L-E-U as in air, not P-L-U-R-A-L as in more than one, although there is more than one. There's plural cavities, but so left and right pleural cavities. Stop doing that, sorry. Left and right pleural cavities are right here. Each pleural cavity, we will figure out in just a little while, will contain a lung. So the left pleural cavity contains the left lung, and the right pleural cavity contains the right lung. So that means that because they are paired structures, you are responsible for left and right, and you need to say left and right in order to be correct. Okay, and then in between the pleural cavities, there is another cavity that contains the heart. And this is called the pericardial. Peri means around, cardi means heart. The pericardial cavity. It contains the heart inside of it. And then this guy right here is called the mediastinum. Can you say that, please? Mediastinum, because if you can say it, you're more likely to be able to spell it. It's not a cavity for reasons that we'll make obvious later. It's actually the space between the two pleural cavities. And inside the mediastinum is going to be not just the heart in the pericardial cavity, but also your esophagus, your trachea is going to be running through there. Your great vessels like your aorta and your vena cava are going to be running through there. So it's going to be called the mediastinum. So let me just draw you a bad picture, which you guys already know that's the only kind of pictures I draw, but I will communicate effectively. All right, so let us look at how this works. So we're going to draw a body, okay? I'm not very good at drawing when I have a physical whiteboard, and I'm much worse with the digital whiteboard. So be gentle with me. Okay, so let's say, not drawn to scale, that here's the diaphragm, okay? And then I am going to have the, flip it around in your head, Melanie, right lung in the right pleural cavity. I'm going to have the left lung in the left pleural cavity. And before I put anything else in there, I'm going to say, okay, there's this space in the middle right here that I'm going to do green because I think they had, or maybe they had it blue. I don't remember what color they was. So this space right here that is between, oops, that's not what I meant to do. This space right here that is between the two pleural cavities right here, this little space, before I put anything in it, that is called the mediastinum, and I'm going to write it for you guys, even though you know that my handwriting is atrocious. Okay, so this space between them is called the mediastinum, and inside the mediastinum is going to be your heart in the pericardial cavity. Let me see if it'll allow me to draw on top of it. Heart in the pericardial cavity with all the vessels coming out of it. So the mediastinum is not an actual body cavity. It's actually the space between the two pleural cavities, okay? And inside the mediastinum is the heart in its pericardial cavity. All right, so pictures for the win. Okay, so then we move down here and we say, okay, we've got now below the diaphragm is the abdominopelvic cavity, and the abdominopelvic cavity doesn't have a clear division between the abdominal and the pelvic in humans, but in some organisms it does. So the whole thing is called the abdominopelvic cavity, and you'll get a little bit more familiar with what organs are where if you didn't learn this at some portion in your life. But the abdominal cavity is really everything above the pelvic cavity. So okay, some organisms have a membrane that separates the abdominal cavity from the pelvic cavity. Humans have lost their membrane there. So how do you know what's in the pelvic cavity? So if you haven't eaten too much during quarantine, there's two little bumps that you can feel that are sticking out from your hip bones. And those are called the anterior superior iliac spines. And if you kind of draw a line between those two, then that's a good landmark to use for everything below is actually in the pelvic cavity. So kind of the classic example of what's in the pelvic cavity is really like your urinary bladder, and then the distal end of some of your digestive stuff is in there. So the pelvic cavity, bladder, some of your reproductive organs, not all of them. The rectum runs through there. And then everything else that's in the abdominopelvic cavity above there is actually in the abdominal cavity. Great example would be, of course, the stomach and the liver are right up there. Those would be definitely in the abdominal cavity and not in the pelvic cavity. So it contains most of your digestive organs up there and a lot of other stuff as well. There's no clear internal division between the two in humans. Okay, and then last thing, and then we'll stop for today, is that I just want to talk about how humans and other mammals behave in response to, let's say, a physical threat first. So are the organs in the dorsal body cavity or the ventral body cavity more vulnerable to a physical attack? So what do you think? dorsal or ventral? So I would say ventral because, of course, the cranial cavity has a really thick skull around it. And then the vertebral canal or cavity doesn't have a complete covering like the cranial cavity does, but it does have a bony cage around it all the way down. And then the ventral body cavity does not have a complete bony cage. Even where you've got ribs, there's big spaces between the ribs. So this one is more susceptible, more vulnerable to physical damage. So that impacts animal and human behavior. So if someone attacks your dog, something attacks your dog, coyote attacks your dog, and your dog chooses not to fight, what kind of body position might your dog take? So you might curl up into the fetal position, right? And it's not because your brain is not your favorite organ, because it probably is your favorite organ because it's the thing that has favorites. It's because this is not very protected and there's a lot of precious things in there. So interestingly, humans actually respond that way to both physical stresses and emotional stresses, at least at some points. You can get so stressed out that you curl up in a fetal position, even though there's nothing actually physically attacking you. Okay, stopping there.